Okay, welcome back. I'm Coach Q, and this is Season 2 of The Ride. Now, I know it's been a while since our last episode, so I appreciate you guys bearing with me in that time. I did get married. I had a trip overseas. I had some things that were basically keeping me from being home for an extended period of time, but I'm excited to get back after it, excited to refocus and deliver you guys a great product in the fall. Hopefully you guys had a successful summer. I know you're out maybe on the recruiting trail, taking your kid to tournaments, other things that you were doing here over the summer. Hopefully it was a successful and productive one. Again, it's been a year since we started this journey back in October of 2025. So excited to continue this, bring you conversations with some of the best coaches and players, and hopefully that delivers great value for you guys in your lacrosse journey. Now today, to kick off Season 2, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Charlie Johnson. Charlie, along with his teammate and roommate, Aidan McGuire, led a defensive unit that propelled Duke to Final Four weekend for the first time since 2023. Our conversation primarily centered around the intricacies of on-ball footwork, how to use your hands properly in defense, Duke's run to the Final Four, and more. As always, hopefully you find some value in it and enjoy the ride. All right, Charlie, welcome to the ride. Happy to have you, man. I've been watching your game for a long time, been a fan of how you play it, and I think you're one of the most underrated defensive players in the nation. So happy to have you. What's going on?
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk about defense, and it's my favorite thing to talk about. So let's go.
What's life like right now? It's kind of an awkward time to be doing an interview just in the middle of the summer. I've been doing a lot of fall and then obviously in season, but what's life like for you?
Yeah, got home like the first week of June, and I'm going back. Grad school starts the first week of July. So it's kind of like a 1 month period where I'm really not doing much. I was talking to one of my teammates the other day and I said, you know, once the season's over, your body kind of realizes it, and then everything starts to hurt when it was kind of all holding together, not telling you during the season. So it's been nice to have a month of doing less and you know, letting myself recover and all that stuff. But honestly, I'm really excited to go down. It's my favorite place in the world. I'll be down there with my friends. We'll have like a dozen guys down there for the summer, and it's gonna be really fun. So I'm jacked up about it.
Give me some recovery tips here right after the season. What are you getting into to make sure your body's looking, you know, okay, and also like in season if you got any?
Most guys, I tell guys after the season, you should take 2 weeks completely off as a baseline. Just do nothing, and then more if you need it. A lot of the younger guys need more because the college season is longer than anything they ever did in high school. So I'm kind of at the point where I'm more used to it, and 2 weeks is enough, and then I start to get like skittish and you know, I need to start working out again. But as far as in the season goes, the most important thing by far is sleep. If you can sleep properly, you are at a huge advantage, and whether that means scheduling your classes around it or you're doing homework or whatever, like sleep is the most important thing, because diet, you know, at the places where we play, like they'll help you out with food, and you know, you guys all eat together, so you're kind of being held responsible with each other in that regard. But with sleep, like you're on your own, and some guys, you know, you it's very easy to develop bad sleep habits or to just get out of whack after 1 or 2 days. So that's a huge advantage during the season if you know how to do it.
It's a great point you're making too, because I feel like at that age, you know, 21, 22 years old, your body can really process any type of food as well, but sleep is hard to really recover from. You know, you're going to have to take the next jump, hopefully. I don't know if you're thinking about the PLL, but you're going to have to go from playing a full season to then jumping into summer. It's going to be exciting. Are you thinking about the PLL at all next year? Are you working into the workforce, or what are your thoughts there, man?
Yeah, I mean, it seems really far away, even if it isn't. I love the PLL. I love watching it really just to watch my friends. Like Aidan McGuire is my best friend. He's my roommate for 4 years, and like now I get to see him play in the PLL. I went because I'll be down in Durham when they go to Fairfield, but I went to Hofstra last weekend, And so I saw him play, and McAdory and Denenza, Tyler Carpenter, like guys that I played with. That's what I get the biggest kick out of in the PL, like watching the PLL. But yeah, I'd love to do it. I mean, the guys who do it say that it's a lot of fun. The crowds, like when I went to Hofstra, that first game, the New York Boston game was sold out. Like it was jammed. So it seems like people are really into it. Yeah, it's I'm really impressed with the way that they've grown it.
Yeah, shout out to the Rabel brothers for what they do for the sport, man. I think they're putting out a great product, so definitely want to be following that up. Also, I'm going to follow up the Aidan McGuire piece. I got to put that away for later in the conversation, man. I had no idea that you guys were roommates for 4 years, so I definitely want to have that combo. You know, I just started a new series called Next Up where I'm interviewing high school guys, you know, seniors, juniors in high school and their kind of recruiting experience. And it's crazy, like the Connecticut guys and all the New England area as well, how late that season goes into, man. Like they're just wrapping up. In the South, a lot of high schools finish up, you know, May, and maybe early May for a lot of us. So I know you're from Connecticut, correct?
Yeah.
You guys went late into your season, then you had to flow into the summer tournaments most of the time.
Yeah, for sure. It was, I mean, and like I went to private school, it finished earlier. Public school's really late. Like my cousin plays at Darien High School, and you know they won the state championship last week, and like so they were playing in the last week of May, or maybe like the first week of June was like their last. It's nuts. I mean, they now they start later, but still, like it definitely, you're right, it definitely goes really long for those guys.
Did you say your cousin or your brother?
My cousin.
Your cousin. I think Rick Beardsley is a coach, man. I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah.
Did he say anything about getting coached by Beardsley?
They love him. He plays offense, but
okay, got it.
He said that he's an awesome coach. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'm getting into the weeds early. I definitely need a Rick here on the show. Tell me a little bit about Durham, man. Like, I'm from Virginia. I'm right down the road. Have never been to Durham, and it's definitely like one of the places I've always been going around it. Charlotte is an area I go to, Raleigh a ton. Why is Durham such a special place to you?
I mean, I had never been to the South really in any capacity when I got to college, by the time I got to college, and it's a completely different part of the United States. Like there's definitely, you know, people will say like Duke's not really that Southern, which is a fair thing to say, but just the people who live in North Carolina and in that area are just the most kind, gracious, polite people that you really don't get in the Northeast. Like when I was growing up, people didn't stop to say hi or smile at each other. It's not really a thing up here. But like you walk around the Duke campus, everybody is smiling. Like everybody wants to help you out. The police officers who are just standing there will do whatever to make your lives better. When I was getting recruited, it was COVID, so it was September 2020, and you know, so there was nobody doing anything. Like I went, when I visited the places up north in New England or wherever, they were all completely shut down, and I couldn't actually visit with the coaches. You just had to like walk around campus by yourself. It was like an eternal dead period. And then I went to Duke and I walked around with my mom around campus, and the sun was shining, people were outside, like they were having fun. It was just a completely different environment, and that was really what brought me there, and I'm eternally grateful that I did. It was the best decision I've ever made in my life, bar none.
You know, I could spend a whole conversation just talking about the different experiences guys have at their universities. Unfortunately, I do love to get into the weeds on the lacrosse stuff, and we obviously want to hit that. I guess the last piece on kind of your experience at Duke, at least as a student, you're going now back for a fifth year. And we just talked about how the 5-and-5 year just got put into place by the NCAA or kind of got voted through. So that's not going to affect you at all, but potentially that's going to affect your teammates. Like, how do you understand this from a player perspective, or how has the coaching staff or the NCAA explained maybe this 5-and-5 rule to the team?
Yeah, I mean, it just passed yesterday, so like the coaches are adapting to it the same as all of us, and you know, it's like you said, it's not something that's going to affect me as far as eligibility or even like my teammates when I'm still here. To me, the biggest difference is going to be, like, I was a senior who had another year of eligibility, and so there's a certain expectation of seniors and I look at it from our program, but I'm sure it's the same way in other places too. There's a certain expectation of seniors that you have the sense of urgency in your last year, and that you lead the program, and that can be difficult if you, like it or not, you have it in the back of your head that you have another year. Like it isn't your last year, so that when you play your last game in your senior year, your career isn't over. So it's a completely different frame of reference, and it's something that I had to adjust to. And then the advantage I had was I was playing for the guys in my grade who it was their last year, like McGuire and like Bard. So I had that there with and that was what drove me. It was I still felt responsible as a member of a senior class, but it's going to be different now for every team without that. I don't know if the seniors become the fifth years or the fifth years mold into the senior. Like I'm not sure how it's going to work, but it'll be different for a lot of programs.
Yeah, like everything else, you're going to see a lot of like second order effects, right, that you don't expect to happen when it's in the wild. So we'll see exactly what happens. It feels very black and white, which is nice. A lot of things from the NCAA can be a gray area, and we're seeing a ton of that on the football and basketball side. But I'm just interested to see, again, how teams react and how teams take advantage of certain rules and things like this. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many fifth years continue to return as well. Is that a percentage uptick in fifth years as opposed to what we've seen in the past? Honing in on this Aidan McGuire piece that you touched on, you guys were roommates for 4 years, man. Tell me a little bit about something people don't know about Aidan. And, one of the biggest reasons I started this podcast was to get guys, for lack of a better term, shine, highlight, and just be able to talk with guys, because oftentimes you can just see a dude behind a face mask and his game is great, but I don't think I've even ever heard Aidan McGuire talk, to be honest. Like, that's the reality of our game, and I want media to go up and to the right. But tell me a little bit about Aidan, man. I just would love to hear.
You kind of already got to it. Like, he plays with such a ferocity and anger and energy that a lot of people would, myself included, if I didn't know him, would just assume that would be what he's like off the field. But he's not. He's pretty quiet. Like, he kind of minds his own business. He sleeps a ton. I mean, talk about sleeping. Like, he sleeps a lot. It's his favorite thing to do. Like, he's very reserved and private off the field. You can kind of see it. Like, he doesn't like to give interviews. He would never do this. Like, he doesn't have social media. He's a private person, but when he gets on the field, it's just a different mode. Like, there's a version of him in there that maybe it can't be out all the time, because that would be exhausting or whatever. But when he gets on the field, he's an animal. Like, he is legitimately an animal. And it also comes, I think, from a love for his teammates. He has such a pride to wear Duke on his chest and to play with his friends, that I think that really shows up more than anything in the way that he plays. He's truly a relentless competitor, the likes of which I've never been around in my life.
Yeah, a couple questions off of this. Diving into him on the field, I've talked with a ton of offensive coaches, and I think this is more honestly of an offensive conundrum or puzzle to figure out, is when you have a really great player, is having the other guys play around him. You don't hear that often on defense. It's more team-led. But I'm interested in when you're off ball, And especially from a short stick D-middie position, you don't usually get the feeling of like, I have to play off Aidan, I have to play off the short stick, right? And how quality he is on the field. How do you think about playing around a player like that? What is your mind on the field work when Aidan's on the field?
Yeah, I mean, he's a game breaker. Like the offense and transition part of it, it doesn't change the way I play very much because I'm not involved with it a ton, but I just get to watch. But the defensive part of it, it was different, honestly, learning to play with him because I've never played with a D-middie as aggressive and physical and really prideful as he is. He and I very rarely argue in our 4 years together. I would say more than half of our arguments that we ever had in our life had to do with me sliding to him. Like he gets really prideful about it, same as I do. And you don't, when you take that level of care in your craft and it means that much to you, you get kind of offended. And so you have to kind of realize sometimes you can tell by his body posture or the way that he's playing, the way that he's setting up, if he's going for a check, like then you might have to jump the rollback. Like once he winds up with his hands, he throws that seatbelt in a way that really nobody else does. And so that is when you can get a positive slide on the back shoulder, whereas a lot of D-middies are really worried about not getting beat. So they'll, understandably so, it's a ridiculously hard position. And so they'll just stay on the hip and kind of, they'll force him one way and whatever. He's not like that. He'll a lot of the time encourage rollbacks when he knows that there will be a slide on that other end. You could pull up clips over the last 2 years of from plenty of games of him doing that and me or somebody else like shooting to the backside. And so the aggression is really the main difference between him and other D-middies, and his athleticism allows him to do that. So it is really like playing with another pole. Like it's like having a fifth pole on the field for sure.
Yeah, and offensive players aren't used to that. I think at the end, obviously, players just weren't dodging Aidan like that. It just got to that, and I'm sure that happened all the way through his career. But the way that he can dictate a game through the checks you were talking about is not normal for a short stick. You're usually getting the game dictated to you and trying to just stay alive. You mentioned his aggression, right? And I want to kind of change this to your mindset as well. You're a football player. Like there's a whole set of different mentalities that you need to take, but some of it's similar as well. How do you manage, aggression or just like like being mean and just being hyped up with being patient and being under control? And I'm just interested in this mindset because a lot of guys go out there, you're like, go out and really be aggressive, and then they lose their mind, right? So how do you kind of balance, or how would you talk to players that struggle with that about, being super aggressive, but also being very patient and kind of have a solitude about you?
It's an interesting question. It's not really something that I've ever struggled with. If you were to ask my teammates, I think they'd say like during the game and the day of game, I don't talk a whole lot. I usually like keep to myself and I don't get super worked up. And part of that's by design. It's the worst, as you kind of mentioned, the worst thing that you could do as a defender is to overextend, like to try and do too much. You see it happen, especially when kids are younger, not even in college, but just like younger than that. They'll overrun approaches or they'll try and push too hard and they'll get inside rolled or whatever. Like that is a learning experience for a lot of people. But I do think like if you have it inside of you, I played football, I played defense my whole life. I played defensive back and that was my thing. Like if you have a certain intensity or competitiveness in your stomach, you don't need to get super worked up before the game or whatever it is to make yourself do it. It just, you're able to play within yourself and deliver punishment, which is the job of defense in a lot of ways, but also being able to remain controlled. And the other thing is like, it's a feedback loop. Like, if you are too aggressive, you will learn very quickly that's just not the way to win. Like, it's when you're, especially growing up, when you're a freshman and sophomore in college, you learn very quickly, if I over pursue, these guys are too fast, they're too skilled, and they can shoot from such low angles that I will lose. And you know, that's part of growing up in college, is like learning, okay, this works and this doesn't. You know, I have to be patient, but I also have to get him away from his spot when he's trying to get there.
You know, I want to have the player development talk later in the episode, but I want to bring up now, because you mentioned being over aggressive, especially younger guys. But also pre-episode, we're having a discussion. I said, hey man, what do you want to like discuss? Like, what are some things that really get you riled up as a coach, potentially during the summertime or something like that? And you mentioned the young guys being not aggressive, right? Sitting back and not using that 6 feet. I'm assuming that's what you talked about. Maybe that they went too far, but I see a lot of guys just sit back and not use the 6 feet as well. Give me a little thought on being too conservative.
Yeah, having your stick out. Well, like Coach D says, he believes that every goal starts in some way from a bad approach. And I agree with that. Like, if you watch on film, and it may not be direct, like it may not be that you just took a bad approach, got face dodged, and the guy scored. It may be when the guy was setting up a long dodge, you were in the wrong spot and you couldn't backpedal properly, or your approach on a slide, like it's more nuanced than that. But to me, especially for young guys, like playing with the full 6 feet of your stick in front of you is there's two major positives to it. Number one is they have to make their dodge earlier, so you have more time to react. And if you play with your stick, you know, horizontal or perpendicular, and they get into your body before they split dodge and whatever, you might whiff with a cross check, and you have much less time to be able to react on a drop step when they're to go left or right. The other thing is, you'd be really surprised if you're a young kid playing defense. You'd be really surprised how many times you can get the ball on the ground by not throwing a single check, literally just putting your stick in front of you at 6 feet right on the guy's belly button. And when they try and face dodge or split dodge or swim or whatever, you'll just be there and they'll lose the ball. So it's not easy when you're younger.
No.
The stick is heavy, and it's takes a lot of core strength and discipline and balance to be able to play and run properly with the stick out. You naturally want to bring the stick to the side because it's easier to run that way. But it takes discipline and really growing up. That's part of why I always tell kids, like, the last thing you want is a stick that's too long when you're young, because it becomes really hard to encourage good habits if the stick is too heavy.
Too heavy. That's a great point.
And that, so I would never, I tell kids I would never have a stick taller than you, ever. It's honestly in college, like, you could easily have a stick 5'10" or shorter, like it,
yeah.
and it would in some ways really help you.
I love the point you brought in about the feedback loop too, because to add on to your 2 points here, the third point would be, if you go out there and you play this way, you will have some sort of feedback loop of like, oh, I can't get away with that. Oh, I can do that. But if you just sit back and you play horizontally, you'll never have that feedback of playing aggressively. And so, you know, you can't play that way in college. I'll tell you that. No way that your coaches are going to get you doing that. You know, kind of honing in on your football piece here as we kind of look at, you know, the different ways to play. Did you play cornerback or safety? Safety. So you're kind of coming downhill. There's some movement backwards, but you're going side to side in downhill. I love watching defensive back film, specifically corners, but like, tell me a little bit about footwork as you see it from football. You seem to be really, you know, having some technical knowledge here. So I'm super excited to have another dude that's probably pretty excited as I get about this footwork stuff.
I love watching defensive backs too. It's some of these guys, the way that they're able to move, they look like they're from a different universe. Like, you look at Pat Surtain, or when Jalen Ramsey was really at the top of his game, these guys, the physicality, Richard Sherman too, but he was more of a zone corner. Like, the physicality that they're able to bring and then transitioning into running with a guy is exactly what you need to play lacrosse defense. And when I was younger, football was always my favorite sport. I didn't even really like lacrosse that much, and even until I was like a sophomore, really in high school. And so I love football more than anything. And after my freshman year of school, 3 or 4 days a week, I would go, and it was in the summer, so we were getting ready for football. 3 or 4 days a week, I'd go do football one-on-ones with the receivers. And I did the same thing after my sophomore year and after my junior year. And that prepared my footwork and drop stepping and finding the ball and hand fighting and anything like that way better than any lacrosse ever did. And it doesn't mean that lacrosse one-on-ones or whatever aren't important. They are. But you don't have the stick. So you're not bailing out in that way. You are going against athletes who don't have a stick either. So they're also running at full speed. You're starting at a stop. So you have to really fully get the back pedal out. And if you were to ask me like what would be the best way to have good defensive footwork, I don't do ladders. I don't do stuff like that. I don't believe that it helps. If I were in high school, I would say play defensive back, play basketball, play hockey. Those 3 sports will help you. Hockey more from a stick perspective, but basketball and football from a sliding and footwork and approaches, and in that regard, that's what gets you to be like a really high level athlete.
Yeah, there's so many things I want to unpack here. One of the pieces that I want to start with, I've got a training session today, and I've been working on this defensive back footwork, just looking at these college coaches and how they talk to their guys and transitioning some knowledge that way in some terms. The one piece I do struggle with is getting guys to like finding drills where there is an approach aspect as well, because there is a lot of staticness to football. And so I just struggle thinking that maybe I'm not doing the right service to my guys, because not a lot of times in lacrosse are we starting from a static position, right? Maybe an out of bounds or something like that. But how do you think about incorporating that stuff?
Well, I would say, just thinking back to like when I was training for football and all that stuff, the approach stuff was much more the safety drills that I was doing, like getting downhill, fitting and taking a good angle to a running back or to a receiver or whomever it was, like that stuff, and the physicality of actually making contact and understanding leverage and you can't hit up too high or they'll just bounce right off of you. Those parts of it are much more present in like the safety drills.
And linebackers a little bit too.
Yeah, linebackers too. I was never big enough to play linebacker, but that is the most helpful part of it. And I pride myself on taking great angles. It's something that is probably, I believe, the most underrated skill of defense in lacrosse. And I learned that from football. Like the number one way to get embarrassed in football is to take a bad angle. These guys, they'll cut back on you. They'll spin you out of your shoes, whatever. You can look really silly, really fast, and give up a lot of yards if you take a bad angle. And in lacrosse, you can save yourself a lot of time and energy and effort by taking a good angle. If you look at the other part about that is the crease is a huge part of that. Like being able to navigate the crease and the back of the net and that kind of stuff, that's all angles. And beating a guy to a spot at GLE, that is really, it's like, to me, it feels like in football when a guy would run down the sideline and you'd have to take a deep angle and be able to get to him. Like that's exactly what it is. And it's the same up top in lacrosse too, but I feel it mainly from behind. But it's absolutely that those are the skills that translate.
We're on the same wavelength, man. When you were talking about the crease, I'm like, oh, that's our version of the sideline. You play a little bit differently. You use that to your advantage as a defender. Super interesting. How do you think about footwork when it comes to, another thing I try to look at our sport, there's not a ton of videos. Like there's more video on how a defensive back should take his first two steps than all of lacrosse defense combined, in my opinion. There's just so much out there from these college coaches. And one of the things I was noticing was this like 180 degree drop step is taught a lot in lacrosse. And I think it's just a thing that's been, I was taught this way by my coaches 10 years ago, so I'm now doing it. But I never like to see that approach, hit the cone, and then the 180 degree drop step. I'm much more like, football corners are taught, you take a mirror step, you step laterally or like semi-laterally, maybe 45 degrees back. But your thoughts on taking confrontational steps laterally as opposed to a drop step that you mentioned?
Yeah, so the way we play, and this always feels very natural to me, is we have a couple guiding principles on where you should be, but how you get there in a lot of ways is really up to you, and it's what feels most comfortable to you. So like we have the principle of trailing the X. So whenever the guy is going to X, you're always behind him, like on his back hip, because he's going to roll. Most of these guys, they're going to roll back. And if they don't, then you take the right angle up through the crease and you're able to get them on the other side. So we have principles like that in terms of where you should be, but the way you move is really what feels comfortable. Like I don't really like shuffling. It's not something that I think really works very well. And so if you watch me play, like especially behind the net, it's pretty much all with my shoulders facing towards the attackman and my hips facing towards where he's going. Mm-hmm. and being able, it's not really a crossover run because you're not crossing over that back foot while still facing the goal line. It's much more of like your body is turned and you are running or trailing with your torso turned 90 degrees. So
you're differentiating a run and a crossover run?
The difference to me is in a crossover run, you're like, if I'm down at the corner and this guy's running to X, if a crossover run to me would be where you are facing, your whole body is facing.
You're like karaoke.
The goal line, right. And it doesn't have to be that severe, but even like that's like the highest example of it. Whereas for me, it's much more like my legs it looks like a run on the bottom half, and then the top half is facing towards the other guy so I can cross check or trail and see when he's turning back and whatever. As far as the side step, like moving horizontally, I agree with you about there's just very few times you would ever need to take a full 180 degree movement in lacrosse, because if you're playing properly, they can't get that vertical on you that quickly. So yeah, I'm on the same page with you about the horizontal drop step for sure.
Yeah, that like opened my world up a little bit. Just like more terminology, again, more videos, so you can just get more knowledge on the concept. But how DBs kind of force guys wider, right, and not allow them to get vertical, and kind of they call it stacking, not allowing themselves to get stacked. If you 180, go ahead.
At this level, like guys are so good and they're so athletic and they're two-handed, they're going to get something. And those DBs push them out of their way to delay their route and mess up the timing with the quarterback. But for us, it's the same thing. We're like, I push them out to prevent them from getting to where the 5-5 or 1-1 or whatever it is that they're trying to get to. Like it's very similar. The only difference is like there's a time element to running a route and guarding a route that doesn't really exist for us. But that time is instead like you can't shoot the ball from anywhere on the field. You can catch the ball anywhere on the field in football, but you can't shoot it if I drive you up to 10 and 10. Now, yeah, maybe some guys in 10 years will be able to do that, and then I don't know what defenders will be able to do anymore. But right now, that's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place with this one-on-one defense stuff, but basically I categorize the phases of a dodge as approaching, containing with your feet, and then engaging. So just this ACE concept that I teach my guys. Engage is such an interesting concept to me because like guys can put hands on at different areas of the field based on where they feel comfortable. They could hit guys in different areas. I imagine it's a little bit like defensive backs in football where some guys like to use one hand or two, or some guys don't like to use it at all. How do you think about engaging, like you were mentioning, pushing guys off of a line or something like that? How do you think about your hands in this one-on-one early start of a dodge?
I would say it's very different, I think, from above the cage and below the cage. Above the cage, I always like to make contact with my top hand first every single time. So like if my right hand is high and you know he's trying to get to his left hand on over the top, like you have to make contact before he gets to a shooting spot with your top hand, because then as he comes down, like you can prevent him from being able to shoot as he gets lower, as his angle gets smaller. But as you improve your angle, you can be farther away from the net and still be able to shoot. So once that place of like, okay, you know, he's 13 yards and he's not really going to shoot from here, but if he gets any closer, he's going to be able to shoot. Now all of a sudden, if I send him down the alley, he can be at 9 yards, but his angle has decreased so much that he can't shoot anymore. So it's all about understanding where you are in the field and how much pressure you really want to give. I also like, from up top, playing more physical with my hands because it slows them down. And it getting run past is much more damaging above the cage than it is below the cage, because they can get to their shooting spot much easier and they can see the slide coming at them really quickly. So I like really jamming them, slowing them down, and being able to prevent. Now on behind the cage, it's different. I like running more and making contact a little less, but being in their gloves more. And then because they can't score, and I like to make contact a yard below the goal line. Like you're not necessarily thinking about these things.
Yeah.
It's just what I do. I like making contact a yard below the goal line so that if I'm going to turn him, it's at a yard above or lower, so that I'm not giving up an inside roll or a question mark or whatever it is. Because if you make contact too late, you get up to 2 or 3 yards, they just turn and shoot, or they'll turn and crease dive or whatever it is. You have to be able to make contact early. The other part about it is it changes whether you're playing cross-handed or not. Like if I'm coming up, the V-hold, we can talk about it later, but like I was feeling very comfortable with my V-hold by the end of this year, and so I was going to it a lot. And when you do that, if you can do it properly, like you can be way behind the guy, because if you're strong enough and your stick is in the right position under his bottom hand, you prevent them from taking any type of good shot. On the other side, you have to be up. You maybe have to make contact earlier because you can't allow him to be able to turn the corner when you don't have that V-hold to prevent it.
Yeah, I always tell my guys, I line them up a little bit like a half step trail or full step trail in that V-hold, and I'm always like, who has topside leverage here? Like, who has the advantage? And they're always like, the offensive guy has. And I'm like, not really. I mean, you guys are in a neutral position because you're in that V-hold now. I love that concept, man. I'd love to get into the V-hold. Before we get there, when you're talking about contacting with the top hand, I'd be interested in like what if that changes based on, you know, whether you're defending against a righty dodge or a lefty dodge. But I was talking to Sean Light about this, and like that first engage as he kind of slides up your stick, are you punching with the right hand, or are you, as he slides up, you're kind of like jamming him? Or is it like more of a feel and a punch with the top hand of your stick?
I think To me, it's more of a jam. Like
Okay.
that's the way I play. It's very punchy and like explosive. It's like playing defensive back. Like when I played defensive back,
Pop.
I was a one hand pop guy with my left hand at like pretty much every single time. Now I'll do it with my left and my right in lacrosse, but that's what I prefer to do is you prevent them from getting topside and you make them then turn their back to you if they're going to roll back or if they're going to bring the stick in front of your face. That's what you want anyway. So really you're just trying to get him to prevent him from getting to where he wants to go, which is topside, and that's a strong topside punch. And sometimes it doesn't work and you need to really like kick hard to the top side because if that they bounce off it or you mistime it or whatever it is, a lot of these guys will just they'll duck their shoulder and they'll come right off of it. So then the counter to that is you got to really move your body to be able to get to where you want to be, and at that point it's really about disrupting their hands so that they can't pass or shoot properly.
I love that this conversation is coming full circle. There's a really cool highlight on Duke's team page of you guarding Palumbo as he was going up the left side. And you mentioned Aidan McGuire earlier this episode too, and how he likes to throw that seatbelt. And you kind of got to that, I call it a reverse V-hold in this clip where he was trying to go topside and you subtly moved your hand around for that hand fight and that hold. And this is kind of what we're getting into here is getting yourself, you're throwing that hip through or a little bit more in the jam that you need to have. But take me through that hand fighting, especially in that finish area close to the cage, like on the island, and where it was in that clip.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a move I do a lot, but it's something that's a product of physicality and punching, like you're talking about. Like, I mean, in that particular play, like he's up to 1-1 maybe, or maybe he's getting up and he's 2 or 3 yards from the cage, and if a guy really wants to go to a certain, left-handed player, like he's trying to get to his left hand, sometimes you really have to say like, all right, I'm not letting you get to where you want to go. And when guys come up, if they're strong left-handed players, it's rocker, it's step away, it's whatever it is, BTB, like that's what they want. And so if a guy comes up with his left hand and I'm up at 1-1, 2-1, it's like, all right, I know this is what you want to get. I'm going to come in and basically hit you as hard as I can up on that, up on your chest and into that stick. And as they roll back, it's something they're not always comfortable with or what they want to do. And a lot of the time, the defense is going to win.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about this, the other side of the field, right? You said you liked the V-hold, right? Righty going against, you're a righty, correct? Yeah, righty going against a righty. You said you like the V-hold. I've really been getting into over the last year teaching that chicken wing. I love the concept of being able to throw it, and then as the guy rolls, your stick's already in that position to kind of defend that secondary dodge or the roll. But tell me, do you use that cross-check hold at all? And do you throw a chicken wing at all? Like, what's your thought process here? I know you said you love the V-hold at the end of the season, but how do you think about that?
So when you're saying when I'm V-holding or when I'm
cross
left-handed?
I guess when you're getting dodged on against a righty going up the right side, there's an ability to go, I guess you were calling it crosshand, like V-hold, or there's an ability to stay on his back and stay in that cross-check. Like, how are you thinking about those two techniques?
So if you don't V-hold, you open yourself up a lot to rockers and getting shot off your hip. Like, that is the main problem, is that these guys are taught that when they feel the stick on their back to immediately come around and shoot. And it's tough for the goalie to see. You're at a tough spot in the field. You can't really disrupt the shot very much because your stick's on the backside. Now, if you want to play that way, which I do play that way sometimes against certain guys, like if you want to play that way, you just have to have a really strong left foot, for me, left foot, that is going to close the door fast. and you have to be able to prevent them from getting topside with your left foot and with your left hip, so that you're now facing almost like your own end zone pylon and turning him around from where he wants to get to. Now, if you have a V-hold, the advantage is you can be behind it, you have more force on the top side, so you're less vulnerable to the rocker and the getting shot around. But what a lot of guys don't understand, young kids don't understand, is that your point of contact in a V-hold is your forearm. That is where you are really driving. If you're trying to get a guy out, that's where you're driving with, is your forearm. And as a result, that's a very small surface area as compared to like if you're cross-checking somebody and you've got both gloves and the shaft in between your gloves. It's smaller and it's not metal, it's you. So you really have to place it properly. And it takes a lot of strength and discipline to be able to do that. That's why for younger kids, a lot of the time the V-hold is not that good, is because they haven't developed the strength or the precision to be able to get that forearm in the right place. And that's why it's tough to teach. It's because on one hand, when you're teaching kids the V-hold, they might lose a lot because they're going to give up if they're guarding a bigger or stronger kid. It doesn't really matter if you are fundamentally sound. They're going to lose because they just haven't developed enough as kids. But if you teach them to play the other way with their stick behind the guy, you're going to it's kind of, I think, an incomplete teaching of defense. Like you're not fully having them understand the value of the stick. You're pretty much playing fully like neutral straight up with your hands and your feet, which is good. But then they lose their biggest advantage at their age, which is forcing them away and using the stick to prevent them from getting to the cage.
How do you think about the engagement of that backhand? Because that's the other real big unlock for me. It was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, of understanding the engagement of this hand. I love the forearm piece that you mentioned. I think guys don't really understand the stickiness that they need to have with this. They think like a push and then they lose the space. But what are you doing with your actual two hands here outside of your forearm? What are you thinking about from the leverage perspective there?
In a V-hold, I want to get under their stick. That's what, in pretty much any, that goes for up top too. I want to get under their bottom hand and then as a result, like almost into their armpit. Maybe not that high, but the feeling of like getting under their bottom hand. So I'm in some way you're fishing, like just as an LSM might fish to try and get a can opener or whatever. That's not how I play, but a lot of guys will do that when people are in the middle of the field. I am also fishing for the right leverage as I'm getting a V-hold. So
how do you fish without losing kind of the balance, right? The leverage piece. Because like I've heard this from a couple guys where I'm like, hey, you got to bottom hand leverage. And they're like, while they're fishing, they kind of lose their positioning or the friction on that guy.
I think it's, maybe fishing is the wrong word. It's more like when I first engage, you kind of either have it or you don't. So as I enter, I'm trying to get to that point where I can get under their hands. And so in that way, I'm fishing for the right spot, but you won't retry. If you get it, it's great. And you see clips where it looks perfect and they'll lift up and the guy's like, his hands are in the air and whatever, it's awesome. But you don't always get that. And so then the next stage is like, okay, if it's not exactly perfect, if my technique or if the way that it hit this guy is not exemplary, it's not teach tape, like how do I now get out of this or get him to a place where he's controllable again? Maybe I can try again, or he'll move the ball or whatever. And the answer really is through your forearm. Like if you miss, you have to drive him out through your legs, but the point of contact is your arm, and get him to a place where he almost like doesn't know that you don't have it. and he has to move the ball or whatever it is.
This is great. I'm having the time of my life here talking defense with you, Charlie. Appreciate it. I love that you brought in the fact that you don't need to hit it twice, right? If you get it, you get it. Everybody's seen those highlights. And sometimes it's not a highlight. It's just you have bottom hand leverage and you've already won. It's not going to throw a stick in the air, but you've won in a sense. I'm interested if there's any like action where you don't get it and now your stick is not in bottom hand leverage, maybe because he's tucking it against his body, or I don't know all the techniques offensive guys use. Is there any aspect of you thinking like you're now pinning? Because
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, if you miss going under or they bat your hand away or whatever, I always get mad because it always feels like a ward, even though,
We don't get those calls.
sometimes they never call that. That's why I could never be a ref. I would call a ward every play. But when you come around, if you miss the under their hand, a lot of the time it is now making contact with their stick like that outside their hand, and then you're preventing them from being able to shoot or pass or whatever it is. And then it's much more with that right hand, for me the right hand, tightening up their stick to their body and preventing them from being able to punch or separate or whatever it is. Because if you don't, if I miss, I come around, I'm really like, at that point the V hold is, it's not up and down, it's side to side. So I'm preventing him from getting up the field and wherever he wants to go. I have to be able to provide enough pressure with that right hand to be able to turn him around and not allow him to run through it, because really good attackmen feel comfortable there. They don't when you're younger, attackmen kind of freak out when they're in a V hold or whatever. College attackmen don't care. They're comfortable. They've drilled it. They want to be there if you are in that spot. And so you have to be able to physically remove them with your right hand and with your arm.
This is one of the last questions I have, I guess, on this topic. But when it comes to like a really hard slap checks, I feel like that was something maybe 20 years ago that was more so like concurrent with a great defender was a guy who was just whacking the shit out of people, right? And just I don't feel like that's the conversations I have. Even with Sean Light, I had him and I was like, hey man, are you thinking about intimidating guys with like hard slaps on a wrist or something like that? Maybe it's because when I'm talking with you guys, like you guys are going against the best attackmen, and it's not necessarily like something you can do against maybe the third best attackman or fourth. When you have a matchup that you just are dominating and you can probably get away with some of that stuff. I'm just interested, like, do you think at all about intimidating guys or making them hurt with hard slap checks?
No, I don't throw slap checks. It's not.
Why do you think that is?
Because when you rear back to slap check, most of these guys will just run right past you. Like it's just a losing. It feels good. Like, I'm not saying I've never thrown them, and if you get mad, sometimes it's cathartic to like just wreck a guy. But these guys are such tough players at this level, and they're so used to it that like it doesn't really do much. And my goal is to win. Like, what gives me the best chance of winning is by preventing them from scoring the ball, and doing slap checks like that is just, it's kind of silly, and it's there's a place for it, I guess, but it's just not really
something that Sean said. I think that rang true to me is that in a ground ball scrum, or when things are that's where you can get like that's when you can get a guy. Yeah, man, this has been a fantastic.
They do the same thing to us. Don't let them tell you, like, they're the exact same way. They will rear back, and when you get the ball off the ground, they're the first ones to do it back. So they understand the value of it too.
Yeah, I wish I could tell this to high school guys. I think I'm going to make it more of a point. After talking with some of the best defenders in the nation, seriously, I've had the top three in my opinion now in like the last month and a half. I've promised offensive coaches I will get some offensive guys in here, but now that I've had you guys and all three of you have basically been like, it's about positioning, right? It's about winning the matchup. It's not about beating the heck out of the guy. I'll definitely give that more of a thing for my high school guys. But Anyways, I completely lost my train of thought here, man. I guess my last couple questions are, how do you think about yourself as, an on-ball defender within Duke's scheme? And what I mean by this is not, I don't know if people know, but Charlie, in my opinion, is like one of the best one-on-one defenders in the nation. I think you do a phenomenal job. You shut down multiple guys, and multiples even underserving. But how do you think about yourself as a matchup guy as opposed to a team defense? And then who was a matchup that you really struggle with and why?
Listen, at the end of the day, when I was younger, not even in college, but in high school, I cared a lot about how many points my guy had, because that was like the number, especially in club. It's just like you take pride in those kind of things. It's always been that way, and I still do care about it. Like, any defender who tells you they don't care about that is lying. But at the end of the day, I'm the senior captain of Duke Lacrosse. Like, my legacy and what we achieve is based on whether we win the game or not, and allowing the fewest goals possible. Nobody's going to look back in 20 years and say, well, yeah, they lost, but whatever, his matchup shot 1 for 8. Like, it's that you lost or that you won or whatever it is. So, that's part of it. But, with that being said, I do have pride about guarding guys, and we operate under the assumption of, like, you have to be comfortable switching any matchup. It doesn't mean you're not cognizant of who it is, but in order to play functional defense at our level with the types of offensive sets that we're going against and the movements that you'll see, you have to be able to switch everything. Now, learning to not lose your man off ball is a skill. And I don't mean just like being back cut, but also like being able to play within team defense while also keeping your matchup, because most of these switches that happen are off ball. Like, yeah, they'll set picks and they'll get matchups, and that part of it is absolutely part of the game. But most of it is they'll set me as the hot guy and they'll make me slide, or they will do a backside exchange and I'm playing team defense, and so then I lose my guy, or whatever it is. That part of the game is the most important, and that's what young guys struggle with the most, because team defense is the hardest thing to learn when you're younger. And even in college, when you're a freshman in college, that's the biggest transition. It's not physical, it's mental. And guys can't play in the team defense while also, maintaining their matchup. It's hard to do. And it's something that you learn, and it's something that I've gotten better at as I've gotten older. It's at the end of the day, you work really hard. This is my life. Like, Duke Lacrosse is what I think about pretty much every minute of every day in some capacity. And, as a result, like, I believe that if anyone's going to guard whoever it is, it's going to be me. There's nobody else. My teammates are more than capable. Like, you look at the D-middies and the polls that we have, they absolutely can do it. But at the end of the day, I want the best matchup. Like, that's the mentality you have to have. You ask those cornerbacks, you ask Patrick Surtain, like, he'll tell you, I want to guard Justin Jefferson. Like, that is my identity. And, it's no different for us now. We have to play more team defense than cornerbacks in a lot of ways. But to answer your second question, the toughest person that I had to cover this year,
or a few,
yeah,
if you don't want to pick out one.
No, it's a good question. Like, again, I always look at it from how you feel after the game is in large part based on how many goals you gave up. And first of all, if you were to ask my teammates, they would say the toughest guy that I guarded all year, or the guy that I had the most trouble with all year, was Ian Dykes on scout offense every day of the week. He's a sophomore, like, big kid from California. Like, he was, most weeks was whoever I was guarding, and he would eat me alive on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And by Thursday and Friday, I kind of had him figured out. And then Saturday, it was good for the most part. But, like, he honestly, if you looked at numbers and you pulled up clips, it would probably be him.
Was he changing up his play style based on the scout?
Yeah, I mean,
That's sick.
He is, he's an incredible, like, he's pretty two-handed and he's huge. And so, but he's very quick. He's very fast. So he can kind of be anybody that he wants to be. And he'll change where he's dodging, what hand he play. He'll play left. He's a righty, but he'll play left. Like he's unbelievable, and he's one of my great friends. But as far as like in the game, I would probably say, honestly, our two worst games from a defensive standpoint were Syracuse and Princeton. And
there you go.
And I think Syracuse, like the Syracuse game, Joey, I've gone against him multiple times a year since I was 12. And, I know him really well. He knows me really well. He's just an incredibly smart player. Like he's a truly gifted lacrosse mind, and he will challenge you in ways that a lot of attackmen will not. He doesn't need to. He's realized that he doesn't need to dodge as much to get his anymore, and he's a really gifted passer and plays within the flow of his offense. Has confidence with those Syracuse guys, and he leads them in more ways than one. It's not just dodging. So
is it ball movement? It's just a tough ball movement cover.
And off ball, like what I was talking about like keeping your matchup off ball, he's the most difficult for that because they'll bring two guys to X and they'll exchange. He's very comfortable with his left hand, so he'll go over, it opens it up a lot more. Guys are easier to stay with if they're one-handed because you're only really operating on one half of the field. He's not like that. So, and he's the cat and mouse game at X is really difficult. You could have an entire podcast about that, about when the ball is above the cage, how do I guard my guy at X? And he is really Eric Maliver, who was an attackman on our team last year, the grad transfer from Maryland. He was unbelievable at that. Like he as soon as you turn your head, ball's
just sneaking
every single time. But somehow he was always there to back up the shot. It was like it never made any sense to me. But like Joey is like that as well. He's very strong at that. So
give me the SparkNotes version. We don't have to spend more than a minute, but give me the SparkNotes version on how you guard a guy when he's behind the cage, off ball.
So a lot of it has to do with our team defense principles. Like it's how we operate within our defense. So usually, if you're at X, I'll say just for the sake of simplicity that you have one guy at X. So if I'm guarding a guy and he's hanging out, the factors are: one, how close is he to the cage? And two, what is his play style? So some guys will stand right up near the goal line. Some guys like Spalina and other guys, Aidan O'Neill, like they'll go all the way to the end zone. So you have more leeway when they do that, but you have then, if they're feeders, then you got to get out to their hands. So it depends on that. But the base of it is, if they sweep to the middle, you have to get up and help out on the crease. Like that's you are the in essence you are the two slide. If they're going to jam a top down feed when you're sliding from the crease, you have to be able to plug up and get there. So you're probably trying to get to like 3 or 4 yards above the goal line. If they go down the alley, you have two options. You can either hold your ground at GLE, or you can flex and take away that forward pass. So it depends on the scheme, who we're going against, what this guy is, how far he is, all that kind of stuff. But mostly I would say I don't mind the forward pass because I believe that I'm quick enough to be able to get out to him and prevent him from doing whatever he does. And if you flex, you take yourself out of the team defense, which is you don't want to do it. Sometimes you have to do it if a guy's picking you apart, but you don't want to have to do that.
So you call that kind of approach out early a flex,
Yeah.
where you're leaking out. Okay, you guys call it a flex. Okay, cool. I didn't want to take you out of that. I appreciate you breaking that stuff down. Any last pieces there on that off ball? No. Okay. Look, we're at an hour here in this conversation, man. Really great stuff. I don't want to hold you longer than I have to here. I do want to take away a couple more things. Duke was a hot topic this year, schedule-wise, when it came to just pundits. And, I had Quint on the show, and he was a little bit critical of, like, the scheduling and what that meant for if you guys are ready to take on the tournament. And you guys weren't even in the ACC tournament, and you got in. So there was all these kind of dramatic points that I guess you could make if you won. I'm sure you guys were pretty level-headed about it. But take me inside the locker room as the season progressed, and you kind of maybe heard the outside critics. And then as you guys got into the tournament and all the success you have, just take me a little bit into this 26 season, man.
Yeah. The schedule thing, like, it's got nothing to do with us. I don't make the schedule. I just find out who we play in November and December. So, it's got nothing to do with me. I will say, like, when people talk about the schedule, I understand, but there's also a part of, like, there's a lot of denigration on some of these teams in the way that people talk about it that I just think is really not only wrong, but not right for the growth of our game. Like, we played Jacksonville and Utah and these teams, like, you see Jacksonville make the tournament, like, they're a very legit team. Like, they gave us a real game. They're physical, they're skilled. Utah is incredibly skilled. They've got guys playing in the PLL. Like, if we want our game to continue to grow and to be in different places, like, there's going to be other teams that you have to play besides the typical ones, and
ACC basically is what people are
getting. So listen, I don't know anything about the scheduling in that part, but, like, from our perspective, you play who's in front of you. And we had, it's no doubt, like, it was a hot and cold year. We started this season 8-0, I think, and then we lost 4 in a row, and then it felt like the sky was falling, and then we won 3 in a row at the end until we lost in the Final Four. So it was a streaky season, and it was really frustrating in the middle of those 4 games. Like, yeah, it was really tough. I've never lost 4 games in a row in any sport in my entire life. And it was, you feel embarrassed, you feel angry at yourself, like, what do I need to do better? But I think that it spoke to the character of the team and the way that the coaches led us in the way that we were able to come out against Carolina. That was the last game of the year. We, for all intents and purposes, were thinking that the season was over after that game. But we felt that we wanted to send out the guys who it was their last game properly, and because we didn't know what was going to happen.
The team thought you guys were not going to get in the tournament.
We didn't know. Like, we certainly weren't expecting it. We thought, okay, it's possible, and a lot of things have to go our way. But we're not operating under the assumption of we win this and we're in at all. So the way guys were able to prepare for a game that was, and we'd lost to Notre Dame a week earlier and been crying in the locker room and whatever it was, feeling like crap, we're out of the ACC tournament and all this stuff. And we came out and we played unbelievable against UNC. Like, we shot the lights out and played excellent on defense for the first, like, 3 quarters. And I was really proud of that resilience. And as a result, things broke our way the next 2 weeks, and guys realized, like, all right, we can do this. Like, we had a very young team this year. We had a lot of freshmen and sophomores playing, and these guys are phenomenally skilled, but it's kind of like you need to see one go in first,
Sure.
And we didn't see one go in until the last game of the regular season. And then Richmond, obviously, I mean, that game was unbelievable.
You talk about cool for the sport. I mean, that game looked awesome to everyone that wasn't there. It just felt like you could feel the energy pop through the screen.
It was a special night. Like, it's probably honestly one of the best nights of my life ever. Like, maybe if not the best one, because we were down. It felt like we were done, and we clawed back and we figured out a way to do it. And then like the fireworks go off at the end.
I know, I love that clip.
It just seems like kind of a movie. And then the next week, Georgetown.
Have you ever played in that game against Richmond? Have you ever played in front of a crowd like that?
No, I mean, my freshman year we went to the national championship, but I wasn't playing. That was the semifinal against Penn State was a huge crowd, but it's different. Like when you go to these, we played at the Eagles Stadium, and it's 35,000 people, but the stadium's fits
neutral as well. Yeah.
So it wasn't really very neutral because the Penn State fans outnumbered the Duke fans like 5-1. But
sure.
Like at Richmond, every seat was filled. It was graduation weekend, so it was so loud. It was probably it was louder there than it was in either of the Final Fours that I've been at. It was. We thought they were pumping in crowd noise because it was so loud. Every time they won a face-off, it was an explosion. So
that's so cool.
It was they said it was the most attended first round game in NCAA history. So
let's get more night games on the schedule. We're doing this with our high school this year. We have got 4 night games for the first time ever. More night games.
I completely agree, and especially once the weather gets good.
True. Good point.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay. All right. Anything on I know only one team can win. Only one team can feel super great at the end of the season. Your run obviously ended there against Princeton. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. It was a tough game. Like they were phenomenal. I mean, all credit to them. Like they were a really impressive team from top to bottom, and they earned it. Goalie was phenomenal. Defense was phenomenal, but their offense was really, really great. Like they played positionless lacrosse, and it showed. And you saw the way, if it wasn't working for one guy, they just move on to the next one, and it's somebody else's day the next day. So they were phenomenal. They demonstrated why they were the national champions. So credit to them. They're great.
That has to definitely feel. I mean, they looked very extremely balanced. The second midfield is a question that they answered really well. And I just wonder, from your defensive mind and like prepping for a game, when a team is that deep, does it throw you guys in a different look for scout as opposed to playing against a team that has 2 or 3 phenomenal guys? When you have maybe a full roster, does that change the scheme or how you guys prep for a game? Because it just felt like Princeton, like you said, any guy you had to prep for.
Once we get to like the last 2 months of the season, every team has a good second midfield. I wish that wasn't true, but it is. Like, UNC had a phenomenal second midfield, and Notre Dame did too. Like, so it's now the difference with Princeton is their ball movement and their off ball movement there's no drop off. No matter who's on the field, they're extremely well coached, and they know their system. So that part of it is different. A lot of times when you go against teams, even if they have a good second midfield, the identity is different whether the first and second midfield are on the field. The first midfield might be initiators, whereas the second midfield are outside shooters, or they let the attack do more of it. Princeton doesn't have that. They're completely comfortable initiating from the top or the bottom with anybody who's on the field. And so it does that part of it. It's very difficult, but really at the end of the day, it's like great players are tough to play against, and they had great players, and that was all over the field. So yeah.
Big fan of your play, man. I highlighted you in a couple things that I've been doing for the ride and in the channel for a long time. So I'm super glad that we got to sit down here and have a discussion. Last question I have. what is your favorite defensive drill? I love that you brought in, first of all, the ladder is definitely a hotly debated topic, but I love that you were like, no, I just kind of get out there and do the one-on-ones, and those help a ton. But thoughts on like a defensive drill when it comes to maybe team concepts that you've done at Duke that you really like, and then also one that you're kind of doing in your training regimen just by yourself?
I will say, I think the best team drill, I would have to say, would be the one that's the most difficult for me, which for us is they'll run a drill where it's like 4 guys, and the offense's job is literally just to, every single pass, there's a pick coming, and it's just 4 guys setting picks for each other over and over and over again, and learning where you are on the field. Like, you don't get a ton of conversation because it's happening really quickly, trying to get over it or under it or whatever it is. That is, you can look really dumb really fast. Is
it spaced out only?
Yeah,
like,
it's like
so far.
It's like
okay.
2 guys starting down low and 2 guys up top, and you'll set up picks, down picks, razor picks, like slip the pick. Anything goes for the offense. Loves it because they could just do whatever they want. And that one, it's not as much team defense. It still is playing picks off ball, but that is for with other people, that is the most difficult drill for me. By myself, most of the work that I do is skill development. I do a bunch of, like, I'll do footwork and stuff and whatever, but a lot of that is just by playing. The part of my game in college that's needed the most development was my stick skills, and it was what kept me from being on the field when I was younger. And so most of that, my individual work, has to do with that. It's I have like a stick work routine that I'll do, and then there's different types of ground ball drills where you're hockeying the ball and being able to pick it up around stuff and those kind of things. It's also helpful to have somebody else for ground balls. I find that practicing picking up ground balls is not super helpful unless you have somebody on your back or in front of you. So that's how I like to practice it. But it's mainly skill development.
Awesome. Charlie, like I said before, man, this has been a great discussion. I loved how far in the weeds we got on a lot of these concepts. I'm a big fan of yours, and even bigger one now that we've been able to talk. Good luck, man. I'm rooting on you guys to bring it home here next season. It should be a fantastic one in 2027.
Yes, sir. Thank you.